Hello everyone, thank you for tuning in to A Boot in the Today Show. Coming up, we're going to hear from President Obama about taxation in the federal budget, but later, babies Blue Ivy and Northwest will be facing off in a diaper dash. But first, let's give the President a little airtime. Thank you for coming today, Mr. President. This is an honor.
Thanks for having me on your show today.
So today we're going to talk about taxation in the federal budget process. So, Mr. President, in light of the recent shutdown, a lot of people are wondering, what exactly is the budget deficit? So I did some research and I found that on the National Priorities website that the United States spends about $3.8 trillion per year, about 22% of the economy. And this $3.8 trillion is broken up into three categories. 30% is used on discretionary spending, such as military and education, as you know. 64% of it is used on mandatory spending, which includes Medicare, healthcare, Social Security, and 6% is spent on interest on federal debt. So one could argue that social welfare entitlement programs should be a part of discretionary spending rather than the mandatory spending. Now, Mr. President, you know about this more than anyone else. What can we do to lower discretionary spending on federal programs?
Well, we can cut spending on different programs. However, the reality of it is, it doesn't make much of an impact on cutting the total deficit and spending of our government. We do have an appropriations process which decides the discretionary budget.
Now, Mr. President, the Congressional Budget Office did come up with about 28 options to cut discretionary spending. Would you mind talking more about this process that Congress goes through?
Sure, I'd love to. It is a long and complicated process that the agency of the Office of Management and Budget deals with. Initially, I submitted a budget request on October 1st. I developed it with the OMB and we focus on three components. The first component is how much we should spend on public processes. Second is how much it should take in as tax revenues. And third, how much of a deficit or surplus that the government should run. In recent times, we end up in a deficit due to our large spending. After this, there are two more steps to determine the federal budget.
So what are those two steps, and can you explain what happens in each of them, Mr. President?
Sure. The second step is the Congressional Budget Resolution. At this step, the Congress receives the request and develops its own budget resolution to correspond with mine, and also to make changes to my request. The third step is enforcing the terms of the budget resolution. This allows a member of the House or Senate to raise points of concern. It prevents the legislation to exceed an agency's spending limit.
So how does the federal government raise money to spend all of these things on the federal budget, Mr. President?
The government gets most of its spending money through taxation. Taxation rates that we determine help us to get the amount of money we need to spend on all the different categories.
I see, and since it affects the people, let's cut to the constituents. Those are the ones who pay the taxes, and we are going to see what they have to say. But don't tune out yet, because as I said, Blue Ivy and Northwest are getting ready backstage.